So you are thinking about moving to the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex and you want to know which city is going to be better for you, Dallas or Fort Worth, then you are in the right place, because in today's video, I'm going to let you know everything you need to know about Dallas and Fort Worth, Texas, so you can make that decision on which city is going to be better for you. So if you're interested in that, make sure you stay tuned. You don't want to miss it, and I'm going to get to it right now. What's going on, everyone? This is your boy Dre the Realtor with Sukaza Realty, living it up in the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex. And if this is your first time watching my channel and you want to know everything there is to know about living, working, playing, eating, and chilling in the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex, make sure you hit that red subscribe button and the bell icon next to it to be the first to know when I upload a new video. And honestly, people contact me each and every day wanting to get more information about moving to the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex, and I absolutely love it. So if you're interested in moving or relocating to the DFW Metroplex, make sure you give me a call, shoot me a text, or simply send me an email. Whatever you have to do to get in contact with me, I got your back when moving to the DFW. So let's get straight to it. Dallas and Fort Worth, Texas are two completely different cities, and they both have their own identity. And listen, when I first moved here, actually before I first moved here, I always considered Fort Worth, Texas as being a part of Dallas. Whenever somebody asks me, where are you going for the weekend? I'll always say, yeah, I'm visiting Dallas, Texas. But Fort Worth, Texas is its own entity, and its own self. Fort Worth has its own suburbs. Fort Worth has its own housing market. Fort Worth has its own school district. It is totally different, and that's exactly what I'm going to be letting you know. I'm going to let you know the difference between Fort Worth, Texas, so you can make that decision on whether or not Fort Worth or Dallas is going to be the right place for you to live when you move to the DFW Metroplex. So the first thing I want to talk about is the vibes of living in Dallas and living in Fort Worth. Living in Dallas, you get more of the glitz and glam. Dallas is more fast-paced, and you get a lot of corporate vibes living in Dallas, Texas. There are a lot of big name companies that are located in Dallas, Texas, such as AT&T, Dean Foods, as well as Comerica. And to top it off, Dallas has a beautiful skyline. So if you're living in downtown Dallas, you can expect to be living in a luxury apartment that has beautiful views of the Dallas skyline, and it's just something that's and it's just something, that's just really good to wake up to, or to live in. I know if I were to live in Dallas, then I would definitely love to have views like that, but those views do come with a cost. Now, Fort Worth, on the other hand, it's more modern, it's more slow paced. The downtown area is not as big and popping like Dallas, but there are still some companies that are located in Fort Worth, but you're not going to find as many skyscraper and tower high luxury apartment buildings that you are going to find in Dallas, Texas. But the main attraction in the downtown area of Fort Worth is Sundance Square, and that is where all the events and action happens in the downtown area of Fort Worth, Texas. So now let's talk about the lifestyle of living in Dallas and living in Fort Worth, Texas. So both of these cities definitely have a lot of fun things to do, but Dallas, since it's so large, there is just a ton of things that you can do. They have the aquarium, the Elam Museum of Illusions. They have the American Airlines stadiums where the Dallas Math plays. There are just a ton of things that you can do. A lot of bars, a lot of restaurants that face over top of the Dallas skyline that gives you really good views. When you think of luxury restaurants, Dallas, Texas is where all of that is going to be. But obviously, that does come with a cost. Fort Worth is not as poppin' as Dallas, Texas, but there's still a ton that you can do in Fort Worth, Texas. Fort Worth is known as Cowtown. Fort Worth has the stockyards where they have daily cattle drives around 11:30 and 4 p.m. Like, you can literally catch a rodeo on any given Friday or Saturday night. Like, that's how lit living in Fort Worth is. And to top it off, Fort Worth has its own club and bar scene as well. That's called West 7th Street. It also has Sundance Square, Fort Worth Botanical Gardens, the Fort Worth Zoo, and it also has a Japanese gardens. But it's not as adventurous and exciting as Dallas, but nonetheless, there is still a ton to do in Fort Worth, Texas. Now let's talk about accessibility. Dallas is close to everything. Everything is within a 20 to 30 minute drive from Dallas, Texas. Besides Fort Worth is about a 30 to 45 minute drive, depending on how far you're driving in Dallas, or how far that you're driving, and how far that you're driving from Dallas, or how far you're driving into Fort Worth. Fort Worth, on the other hand, it's like you're living on an island. Everything usually takes about 30 to 45 minutes. It can also take up to an hour and a half, just depending on where you're going. I know a few times it took me an hour and a half, just an hour to get to Coppell, to the Colony, to Garland. It really just depends on where you're going. It usually takes about 45 minutes to get to Dallas, but living in Fort Worth, it definitely feels like you're living on an island. It's just so far from the major cities in the DFW. But Fort Worth also has its own set of suburbs as well. So if you want to be far from the action, you don't want to pay too much in housing prices, then you may want to look towards the Fort Worth suburbs. They have really good school districts in those areas, and the new construction homes that they're building out there is just absolutely amazing. So now we talked about accessibility. Let's talk about cost of living. Both of these cities are definitely very affordable. They fall right underneath the U.S. average for under the affordability index. But the main thing you want to pay attention to is the housing cost. The median price of a home in Fort Worth, Texas is going to cost you about $280,000. Now, the median price of a home in Dallas, Texas, is going to cost you about $418,000. So it's a significant difference, and you definitely get more bang for your buck living in Fort Worth, Texas. Now, if you don't believe me, here's what a house looks like in Fort Worth, Texas. It costs $280,000. Then here's what a house that costs $280,000 in Dallas, Texas. And man, you can definitely see what the difference is between both of these houses. Another thing that you have to worry about when moving to the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex is the property taxes. The property tax rate here is about 2.87% for both cities. But man, that can take a big chunk of your money when it's time to pay those property taxes each and every year, and they're always rising. So the last thing I want to talk to you guys about is the traffic. The traffic in Dallas is absolutely crazy, and I absolutely hate driving in Dallas, Texas. There is so much construction on the road. It's so confusing. Every time that I drive through Dallas, Texas, I literally get off at the wrong exit, and that is how bad it is. And every time I drive through Dallas, Texas, I always plan about an extra 20 to 30 minutes, because you never know how the Dallas traffic is going to be. But Fort Worth traffic, on the other hand, Fort Worth has construction, but the traffic is not as bad as Dallas, Texas. Literally, when it's peak driving time, I literally would only add about 5 to 10 minutes to my commute, because the traffic is really not that bad in Fort Worth, Texas. And if you found any value from this video, make sure you hit that like button. If you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment. I always monitor my comments daily. And then if you have any other questions or are interested in more content about the DFW Metroplex, make sure you watch one of these videos where I let you know everything there is to know about living, working, playing, eating, chilling in the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex. Until next time.